Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk, and today I thought we'd have a go and see if we can actually get anything out of this little IBM PS1. And with that in mind, I've gathered together a few little bits and bats, and we can see if we can build up a power supply, see if we can get anything out of this thing. Now, I haven't got exactly what we need, but I've got bits that, like I say, I think I can make something up that's probably going to work for us. I had a rummage round in all my junk and I dug that out. It's actually the power supply off an old HP printer, but it gives out 34 volts at about 2.5 amps, something like that, so it's a little bit under. But because we've got a DC converter in this, because the specs were between like 40 and 50 volts, and with the like the average is at the 36 volts, this should actually work for us. It's close enough for this to actually work for us. Like I say, it would be nice if the current rating on it was a little bit higher, but because we're not running a hard drive in this at the moment, and we literally just want to see whether the computer is actually going to power up, I think we'll get away with it. I've also got a connector. It's like the same as used on a PC joystick, analog joystick. I've got one of them for the back. Got a bit of screen cable there. I've got a 3.5mm jack, so we can also see if we can get perhaps the audio out of it. And up on screen, I don't know if you can make that out, but here we've got a pin out of how we need to connect that jack up, and I've also got a nice case as well, just to put it all in and make it look pretty. So let's shall we get on and actually we'll build this thing, and then we'll see what, like I said, we can see whether this computer is actually going to do anything. I think we've got to get these packets open. There we go. Get the connector out. Right, there we go. There's one there. One connector. So we've got a little bit of screen cable there. We've got some heat shrink. I don't know if we'll need all that heat shrink. And we've got the power supply. First thing we're going to need to do, being that this was used with an old HP printer, is we will have to just trim that connector off. So let's get some snips. We'll get that off. Hopefully we've just got an inner and outer conductor on here. We should have. Right, so let's have a look. We'll snip. Actually, I'll leave a little bit on it like that, because I always throw them in a box. And then when you need a random connector for something, it's amazing how many times they end up eventually getting reused for something. So like I said, that won't go to waste. That'll go into my little moulded connectors box. Let's just strip back some of this. Let's strip back some of this insulation. This is tough cable. I think HP didn't skimp. It's a good quality cable this, and it's only a couple of amps, 2.5 amps, something like that. They have used a decent cable for the power connector here. So anyway, there we go. Oh, I'll tell you what I'll do as well, is I'll stick that on there now so I don't forget and swear at myself later on. Right, there we go, that's through there. Right, we can strip that off there. I think I'm going to stick a little bit of heat shrink on there so it can't short out while it's actually in the connector. And stick a bit of that on there, like that. In fact, I don't think I'm going to do the power side of it first. I think I'm going to do the audio side of it first, because that'd be a little bit easier to just to make up before we've got them two wires. Because the power wires are actually really simple on this thing. It uses basically 3 of the connectors for the plus 36 volts, and it uses another few for the grounds. But all the 3 for the 36 volts are all together. It's basically pin 1, pin 2, and pin 9. So if we'll have a look at this now. So we've got pin 1 there, pin 2, and pin 9. So them 3 at the end there are all our power connector. Then we need to pick some grounds up. I think there's a couple of grounds down here we can use. But what I think we'll do is we'll just get the audio connected up to this first. Make life a little bit easier, and then we'll just solder in the 2 for the power. Just strip off a little bit of this screen cable I've got. So this isn't entirely necessary to get it working, but it would be nice to at least hear a PC speaker. And without having any issues, the postcodes that gives out might actually give us an indication what's wrong. So another nice reason why I would really like to get the audio working on it as well as the power. Right, I'll twist them together, and this is a stereo piece of screen cable, so we only need one, so we can snip one of them out. Let's snip the white one out and leave the red one. There we go. I am going to use a bit of heat shrink on there as well. The only reason I'm doing that is because we've got 34 volts floating around in this connector and audio, and I don't want to have anything short out and risk blowing anything up. So it's always better when you've got signals and voltages very close to one another, to make sure there's no way that they can come into contact with one another. Because when they do, horrible things go wrong. Right, let's just tin these up. Yes, I am using my 1960s soldering iron for doing this, but we're only making some power connectors up. It's not a big thing. Right. Let me get the stand closer in so we can actually. I'm not messing about then. Right. Okay. Now. They're tinned up. Could do with putting a little bit of shrink on that ground there, because that's only audio ground. We don't want that mixed up with the other grounds. So we'll stick that over there just so we don't get that, and shrink that down on there, I think. Just using the side of the hot part of the soldering iron, not the tip, just to shrink that bit of heat shrink down a bit. There we go. In fact, I'll just put a little bit more tinning on the end of that. There we go. Oops. It's really tricky doing this down here without having anything to hold. Like any holding hands or little things to clip wires with. But we're managing. Right, so let's find out which pin 1 is again. That's pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pin 6. Yeah, so 3 from the end. So that's 1, 2, 3 in there. And what I need to do is just add a little bit of solder, basically tin up the cup on the connector. Let me get you down. I'll see if I can just zoom you in a little bit. I don't know how much you are going to be able to see actually, but we'll just zoom you in a little bit. There we go. There we are. And we just want to add a little bit of solder to the cup first, just like that. And we can take our wire. Oh, in you go. There we go. The first one connected. And we want a ground for that as well. We want the audio ground, which is pin 7, the bit next to it. So let's again, we'll just fill the bucket in with a little bit of solder. Let's go on there, tin that up with a little bit of solder. Just like that. And we can take the wire. Oops, you can't see very well there, can you? This is the only problem. I seem to cover what I'm doing with my hand. I'll say, unfortunately, because of the restrictions in my office here, I have to have the camera on the left hand side, and unfortunately I'm left-handed. So let's get that about right, and we should just touch that and melt that in place. Oops, no, not quite. We got you this time. Nope. Let's try adding a little bit more solder. I don't think I put enough solder actually in the connector before I started then. Just add a little bit more. There we go. Again, we'll just try and get that to line up on there. Go on, melt. There we are, that's better. There we are. So that's the audio. Oops, you can't see that, can you? That's the audio there connected. Not brilliant, but it'll do the job. Yeah, it's good enough. It's good enough, that. Right, next thing I want to do is I want to basically connect pin 1, 2 and pin 9 together, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to flow some solder over that that lot there basically. So what I'm going to do, them three, like I said, pin 1, pin 2, and my screen's gone to sleep. But pin 1, pin 2 and pin 9. I'll just try and solder all 3 pins together. Just like that. Perfect. Got them. So you can see I've soldered pin 1, pin 2 and pin 9 together. And that's going to be our positive. Just shrink that little bit of heat shrink down. Make life a bit easier for us. There we go. That's shrunk down there. You can see that on camera, but I've literally just shrunk the bit of what's it down. But, right, let's get that, and we'll tin these wires up. There we go. That's plus, and here's the ground. That's them tinned up. Get my screen back on so I can see what's happening. So we know basically we want to pick the grounds up, and let's say let's have pin 13, let's have 14 and 15 as our grounds, because that'll work. So we've got 15 and 15 and 14, yeah, and then we've got pin 8. Right, so yeah, we'll use, sorry about that, we will use 10 and 11 in fact. So let's have a look here. We've got that's 1, so that's 1 over there. We've got 9, 10 and 11. So right next to the right next to where our power comes, sorry, where our plus is, we can have our ground. At least if them two short, all it's going to do is put the put the power supply into protection mode, it's not going to cause any other issues. So actually having them both next to each other is not too bad. A little bit of solder on there, a little bit of solder on there, and then we can just see if we can just join them two together. There we go, perfect. So if you look, them 3 pins are joined together. They're our plus 36, well 34 volts, and the two next to it there are our ground. So all we need to do now is just solder these in position. There we go, that's the first one, that's our power in. And then if we bring that one across, we can solder that to them 2 pins next to it, and that can be our ground connection. So just hold that while I just gently just heat them up. Drop it in like that. That's it. Excellent. And we'll just double check that we have got everything in exactly the right place, because it would be incredibly embarrassing to wire this up wrong. So anyway, we've got pin 1 there, which is pin 1 on there, pin 1 and pin 2 at 36 volts. Oops, you can't see what I'm looking at there, can you? Let me get you up on the screen. Oop. So anyway, as I was saying, we've got the connector here, and we've got pin 1 there, which corresponds to pin 1 on here, which corresponds to the 34 or 36 volts in on that pin. Pins 10 and 11 down there are our ground, and then we've got pins pin 6 and pin 7 on this side, which are our audio. So that's basically that connector wired up. We'll pull this through, get you down on what I'm working on, zoom you out a little bit, there we go. So all I need to do now we know that that's wired up correctly, and it's not the neatest of jobs, but it'll do the bloody job. Let's try and get these two wires out of the connector. Can be a little bit of a faff. Ah, there we go. I was going to say it could be a little bit of a fiddle and a faff, but we've managed it. And we've got to make sure we get this to go in the right way round onto the back of the computer, or else when we plug this in, we won't be able to get the VGA connector in. That's right the way we've got it now. Right, so let's screw this in position. In fact, I need a screwdriver. I've got a little flatty in here, have I? There it is. Out you come on. There it is. Right, let's give this a try. Let's tighten it up. There we go. And I think we've got another one for there, yeah. These are old shells for the connector, I must admit. These are probably early 80s. But I've got a massive stock of these like D-type plugs and the cases and everything for them. I've got a massive job lot. We were last year or the year before off eBay, absolute bargain lot. So I'm never ever, well, I'm not going to be short of these for a very long time. Right, let's put, basically what this does is it just traps the, it's quite an interesting strain relief. I've only ever seen it on these really old connectors. Basically you push a piece of plastic in, and then you have a grub screw. You put the grub screw in, and that actually locks the cables in position so they can't move about. Like that. So you screw that in there. Don't go mad, obviously. And that holds the cables nice and secure. Right, so all we need to do now is put a connector on the back of here. Now which side, I need to just figure out which one of these is the ground. just an old connector that I've literally salvaged off something. I don't know what it's originally was originally for, or originally off, sorry. Just a 3.5 mil jack, but like I said, at least it'll hopefully allow us to get some audio out of this, because I presume, I mean I'm not sure, I presume it brought it out at line level and there was a little amplifier or something in the monitor. We could potentially blow my speakers up with this, but that wouldn't be the end of the world. I'll strip this back a little bit. There we are. We don't want the white one. We said we didn't. We used red, didn't we? So let's get all the grounds together like that. Let's snip that white out because we don't need it. Let's just bare a bit of the red. So that should be our audio connection there. Let's just desolder some of this. Let's just desolder some of this crud off the connector we're using. There we go. One off. And that one coming right off. Right, let's tin these up. There we go, that's tinned up. We can connect these. In fact, what I do need to do is figure out which one of these is hot and which is the ground. I'll connect it up to my speakers and then turn them up. But they all give a, I think that one will do. Turn them down a little bit. And I'll solder that to there. Put that in there. You can solder that in position. That one done. Yeah, I'll just trim the excess off there so they can get the heat shrink over it. And then that one, I'll just have to trim that down a little bit, I think. A little bit of a blow on the end there. Push that through there. And again, we can just solder that into position. There we go. We shove that bit of heat shrink over there just to make it, I mean that's not essential in any way, shape or form, it just stops you touching the ends of them. We'll see if we can just shrink that down a little touch. I haven't got a lighter or anything to do this with. My hot air is in the attic, so I think we'll just have to, it's not going to shrink down perfectly, but we can just get it so it holds on. That'll do. There we go. I think that'll do us. Yeah, I think that'll do. That's shrunk down enough for the time being. Like I said, obviously we could do that a bit better in the future, but for what we want, which is something to just see if the computer's going to actually just unplug my soldering iron and get that out of the way. For something just to see if the computer's actually going to fire up or do anything at all, I think that'll probably actually that'll do for us. What I will have to be aware of is obviously with no power switch, so as soon as I apply power to the power supply, it will try and energise the computer, so we will have to make sure we're reasonably sensible with how we actually apply the power and try and start this thing up. But I think that's what we should do next. Let me just get my bits and bobs away, and we'll see whether we can get any life out of this thing. I'll get my toolbox out of the way. Out of the way. Fortunately, I've still got that PS2 keyboard and mouse that we had the other day kicking about, so we can try playing with them. Right, let me get you up on the screen. There we go. That's better, isn't it? You can see the old PS2 now. There we go. Right, so we've got our connector now. We've got our power supply. We've got a speaker actually, so we can even connect the audio up. Right. So that new connector that we've made, that plugs in there like that. So that gives us our oops. You can't see this very well, can you? Right, there we go. In fact, let's start with plugging our VGA in. We've got our VGA here, which, like I said, is just a standard VGA cable. Any VGA would suffice. And that's not that non-standard. It doesn't use a standard video signal. Although I'm surprised they didn't actually change the connector to some strange proprietary connector. Made just about everything else on this thing proprietary. We'll connect the keyboard and mouse up while we're back here. We've got a keyboard, so if it fires up I want to see whether the GUI and everything works, so I'll connect a mouse as well. We'll connect the power up to where the power needs to go, which is I know that's going to be a problem. What I am going to have to do is just quickly nip out the little you know, the little hexagon things that they have at the side of the connectors. What are they called now? I can't remember off the top of my head. You know what I mean though. They're always missing on things like VGA cards and whatnot. But they are actually preventing, because this goes in with screws, they're actually preventing that fully seating home. So what I think we will do... Oh. Well, that's a bugger. You can't unscrew them on this. They're actually part of the connector. Oh. Right, well, for just initial test, what I'll have to do is take the screws out of the... That's a bugger. I'll have to take the screws out of the case that I've just put on there. This is a bugger, because they won't fit with them screws in. I'll either have to find some flatter screws, or I'll have to find a different case for this connector. Right, now let's try it without them screws removed. Hopefully it should actually push in this time. And it does. It actually pushes in home that time. Right, while we're in here, we'll get the audio from the speaker and we'll get that plugged in. Oops. Then at least, like I said, if it does give us any post beeps or anything, have to be a bit careful getting that connector round. Right, there we are. And I'll also get the monitor switched on. Let's not get anything too trapped. I will get the monitor switched on just so if it fires up, we can actually see something coming up on screen. So let's switch that on. Then I've got, there we go. Let's make sure that's on PC. AV1, AV2. I think the next one's PC. Yeah, PC. There we go. In fact, I'll get you. Oops, I'll get you up a little bit so you can see what the screen's doing as well. In fact, I want to get you down a bit so you can see the computer and you can see the screen. There we go. That's close enough, isn't it? Probably push it back a little bit. There we are. Hopefully you can see that. Right. So the only way I can power this up is I've got my IEC here. I have got the power supply here. So hopefully, if I shove this figure of 8 in there, it should power it up. So let's see what happens. Well, the lights come on the power supply. I don't know if you can see that. We do indeed have a computer that's fired up. I heard one click from the disk drive. Look at that. There we go. This is the mouse working. Yes, the mouse is working. So basically, yeah, it works. It does work. Information, system tutorial. It wants that off a disk. Alright, cancel. But this is the, it's very basic, but this is the GUI built into the IBM PS1. Microsoft Works. Again, even the stuff that it's trying to launch off the GUI, it wants disks for. It's not, none of this is in ROM. So the one that my mother's friend's son had actually did have a hard drive in it, so all the things like that just worked off the hard drive. So the IBM DOS disk. Now I thought it loaded that off ROM. Right, okay, let's cancel that. Let's go into your software. Diskette drive is empty. DOS prompt. Right, okay. So at least we've got down into DOS. Let's see if that disk drive is going to be able to read a disk. Have I got any old floppy disks in here? Ah, yes, I have. Yes, I have. So at the very least, we can see whether it can read a disk. We've got IBM DOS version 4, which I think, like I said, that's what's built in on ROM. I don't know if the disk drive is going to actually work. Oh, hang on a minute. Let's retry. Well, at least the motor's spinning in the disk. Don't know whether it's actually going to be able to do it or not. So these disk drives are notorious for not try aborting it. These disk drives are notorious for playing up. So I feel we may have a slight. We've also got some error messages. We've got a 161 error and a 163 error. We can look them up. Like I said, the standard. They're pretty standard errors for the IBM range. Abort, fail. Let's see what drives we can get. DIR, yeah, that's the right. That's the. This is DOS in ROM we've got here. So C drive, basically with no hard drive in it. C drive is the ROM drive. But let's just see if we can possibly get it to read this disk, or at least recognise this disk. It's as though it has an attempt at reading it. I can hear the motor going in the disc, in the drive, but that's it. I can't hear the stepper going, I can't hear it trying to seek or anything, it's just spinning the disc up. Nope, no, let's try ejecting it. We'll have to do a Control-Alt-Delete because it just literally freezes at that. So we do have a faulty disk drive. Like I said, we've got some errors here. We've got a 161 error and we've got a 163 error on the screen. It's telling us to press the F1 key, which we can do. And it does boot to the GUI. I mean, calling it a GUI is being really glorious to it. It's this one screen and everything you want to do from this one screen. It just asks you to stick a disk in, obviously, because it has no hard drive. This and the base spec. This is exactly how it was sold. You got this with 0.5 meg of RAM, like this has got, no hard drive. And you got this pretty little GUI. Like I say, even if you wanted to run works, you clicked on it there and you still have to stick your discs in the front of the computer to actually get it to work. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now, because obviously all this video was to do with really was just to prove, can we actually get the thing to fire up, and does it basically work, which it does. I'm actually quite pleased with that. It's a bit of a shame that there seems to be something wrong with the 3.5-inch disk drive, but that's going to be a upcoming video. We can do a video and see if we can actually get this original drive to work again. If we can't get the original drive to work again, we're going to have to look at modifying a modern, or at least a standard PC 3.5 1.44 megabyte floppy drive to work in this system. And then I suppose we're going to have to look at a little bit of a RAM upgrade, if it's indeed possible without the original cards, and of course see if we can sort some solution for a hard drive. I would like to keep this computer, like I said, because it was the first computer, one like this, that I ever used Microsoft Windows on. And it's such a nice tiny little form factor for having like down here in the office and stuff. It's not, my only other 286 PC is a Zenith 286, and it's a monster. It's incredibly heavy, it's huge. It's very unwieldy to set up because it's so heavy and so large. This is lovely and tiny and just nice to have. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. I hope you enjoyed that little update on this project. So thanks for watching and goodbye.